Imagine a hero born under a prophecy so strong that even the king of the gods shakes. This is the story of Achilles, a life intertwined with mortal suffering and divine strength. Tonight, as you drift off to sleep, we'll go from the depths of the sea nymph's promise to the battlefield where legends are made, guiding you softly through each part of his journey. Before we go further, let's do something. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is over there. We would love to hear from you. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss our upcoming videos. Long before Achilles became a name known across battlefields, before the clash of bronze and the roar of warriors, his story began beneath the calm waves of the sea. His mother, Thetis, a sea nymph with quiet, otherworldly beauty, moved through waters as deep and mysterious as time itself. She carried a promise, a child destined to walk the line between mortal life and divine fate. Tonight, we'll follow that path together. We'll feel the first stirrings of a hero, the weight of choices yet to come, and the gentle pull of destiny that shapes every step. So lie back, breathe slowly, and let the waves of this story carry you into the world of gods, heroes, and quiet courage that will guide us all the way to Troy. Some nights settle over the world so softly you barely notice the darkness coming in. It just folds itself around you, slow, certain, familiar. The kind of night where the wind moves like a whisper across an open field, and every sound feels a little farther away, a little gentler. That's the kind of night the old storytellers say existed before Achilles ever drew a breath. A stillness, wide and deep, the way the air feels on a calm summer evening somewhere in the American Midwest. Warm, steady, quiet enough that you can hear crickets stitching the edges of the dark. Back then, the world wasn't silent, just waiting. Waiting the way small towns wait before a storm rolls through, when you can feel the air thick with something about to happen, even if the sky looks peaceful. That hush, that held breath is what the world felt like before the greatest Greek warrior was born. Not because people expected him, nobody knew his name yet, but the old gods did. Fate did. And sometimes fate settles in the air long before footsteps ever touch the earth. Across the sea, past coastlines that shimmered in the moonlight like quiet New England mornings, there lived a sea nymph named Thetis. She moved with the grace of the tides, and yet carried a heaviness in her heart that no one else could see. She knew, long before the rest of the world, that her child would be extraordinary and burdened for it. And somewhere far beyond her, the world kept turning. People lit lamps, fishermen tied boats, children drifted to sleep under warm blankets, unaware that a story was beginning. One that would echo for generations, carried through time the way campfire legends travel across America's open roads. There was no thunder announcing the moment fate shifted, no blazing sign in the sky. Just that quiet, that deep American night quiet, as if the world were holding the last peaceful breath it would have before Achilles arrived. And with that stillness lingering, the story begins to move, slowly, gently, toward the moment his life comes into the world. toward the child who would tip the balance of a war and change the rhythm of history. The quiet that settled over the world didn't last long. It never does, not when something extraordinary is on its way. And as dawn stretched across the horizon, soft and golden, like the first light spilling over a small town porch, Thetis felt the moment arrive. Her child, her son, came into the world the way a spark lands in dry grass, small, bright, and carrying more power than anyone realized at first glance. Achilles. Even as an infant, he had a stillness about him, the kind you only see in children who seem to watch everything before they learn to speak. The kind of quiet focus you'd notice in a kid staring out the window during a long road trip, taking in the whole world without saying a word. Some babies cry their way into life. Achilles simply arrived, with eyes that felt too aware for a newborn. Thetis, holding him close, felt both pride and something heavier, something a mother should never have to carry. Because she knew, long before the oracles whispered it, this child's life would burn bright, but not long. Heroes, the old stories said, were like comets. Beautiful, fierce, but fleeting. And Thetis wasn't ready to let fate have him. Not yet. You see, mothers in every culture, whether in ancient Greece or modern America, share one instinct: protect the child at all costs. Thetis wasn't different in that way. She just had stranger tools and deeper fears.
So, as the waves rolled quietly along the shore, she brought Achilles to the river Styx, the dark, ancient water where mortals never swam. The air around it felt colder, stiller, the way a deep forest feels at dusk, when even the wind holds its breath. She dipped her son into that water, holding him tight, fingertips pressed around his heel so she wouldn't lose him to the river's pull. It wasn't magic that felt like fireworks or lightning. It was subtle, like the way warmth creeps into your hands by a campfire. When she lifted him out, his skin carried the hush of something unbreakable, all except for the heel she held on to. She didn't understand the consequences yet. She only knew she'd done what any mother would do if given the chance to protect her child from the sharp edges of the world. For a while, life was quiet again. Achilles grew the way American kids do in stories told on front porches, running barefoot through sunlight, laughing with a kind of freedom only children know, building a strength that was gentle before it was great. But even in those early years, people talked, quietly, wondering what kind of boy could survive what he survived, move the way he moved, shine the way he did. Rumors spread the way stories do in close-knit communities, slow, steady, unstoppable. And far beyond all that warmth and innocence, the winds of a distant war began shifting direction, not loud enough for him to hear yet, but loud enough for fate. Because everyone who knew the old prophecies understood one thing: when Achilles grew up, the world would change. And childhood, that beautiful, fleeting season, was already beginning to slip away. Childhood has a way of drifting by like those long summer days in the American countryside, slow, golden, and somehow gone before you even realize they were happening. Achilles grew through those days with a brightness that seemed to follow him, the way sunlight clings to dust floating in the air. He ran through fields with the quick, quiet confidence of someone who didn't yet understand his own strength. Villagers would watch him from a distance, whispering the way folks in small towns do when they've spotted a kid who's different, not troublesome, not strange, just set apart by something they couldn't quite name. And Thetis, knowing her son's destiny was larger than any life she could build for him, did what any mother would do when the world feels too big for her child. She sought help, not from kings, not from warriors, but from someone who could shape a boy into something more than a prophecy. Chiron. If the old American storytellers had written about him, they might have described him like the wise caretaker in a frontier tale, the person children run to for guidance, the one who fixes broken things and calms the storms that rise in a young mind. Except Chiron wasn't human. He was a centaur, half man, half horse, and entirely unlike the wild, untamed creatures that roamed the mountains. He lived tucked away in a high, quiet place where the wind always carried the scent of pine and cool stone. Achilles arrived there on a morning washed in soft light, the kind of morning when the world feels brand new. He welcomed him not with fanfare, but with the steady warmth of someone who had seen countless children grow into countless fates. He didn't treat Achilles like a weapon in the making. He treated him like a boy who needed guidance, structure, and a gentle hand. And so the lessons began. They weren't the lessons people expect of a legendary warrior. They were simpler, quieter. How to listen to the forest, how to move with the rhythm of the earth, how to steady your breath when fear rises, the same way a person steadies themselves before speaking a painful truth. He taught him to fight, yes, but only after he taught him compassion. He taught him to run swiftly, but only after he taught him patience. He taught him to throw a spear, but only after he taught him to understand why one should only throw it when there's no other choice. Under Chiron's care, Achilles grew not just strong, but thoughtful. Not just fast, but focused. A boy shaped into a young man with a mind as sharp as any blade he would one day carry. And yet, as seasons passed, snow melting into green, green turning into gold, gold slipping back into winter, Chiron felt a subtle shift in the air around Achilles, like the first hint of cold drifting down from the Rockies, warning of a storm weeks before it arrives. The boy was changing, growing, becoming. And somewhere far from the peaceful mountains, the whispers of war grew a little louder each year, like distant thunder rolling across open plains. Achilles heard none of it yet. His world was still full of lessons, laughter, and the steady presence of a teacher who believed in shaping a hero from the inside out. But even in that quiet sanctuary, fate was watching, waiting, patient but sure. Because childhood, no matter how lovingly carved, cannot last forever.
And soon, Achilles would have to leave the mountains behind and walk toward the life that had been waiting for him since the moment Thetis dipped him into the river. A life no amount of training could fully prepare him for. Leaving Chiron's mountain was like stepping out of a childhood home for the last time. Quiet, uncertain, and a little heavier than Achilles expected. The air felt different down in the lowlands, warmer, thicker, carrying scents he hadn't smelled in years. The world was wider now, louder, and somewhere inside him a restlessness stirred, the same kind that settles into young men when they start sensing that the simple days are slipping behind them. But his mother, Thetis, watched him with eyes full of worry. Not the ordinary kind, the way American parents worry when their kids take the car out for the first time or start college miles away. This was deeper, ancient, a fear carved from prophecy itself. She knew what the world would ask of her son, and she wasn't ready to let the world have him. Rumors traveled fast across the sea. Rumors of a brewing war at Troy, of omens pointing toward a singing warrior who could shift its entire balance. And every whisper felt like a thread pulling at Achilles' name. Thetis could feel it tightening, so she did what only a desperate mother backed into a corner would do. She hid him. Far across the water, there was an island called Skyros, quiet, peaceful, the kind of place where the days drifted by like soft waves slipping against the sand. Thetis brought Achilles there in the dead of night, when the moon was a thin silver line across the sky and the world felt small enough to escape. The palace on the island belonged to King Lycomedes, a man who lived simply despite his wealth, running his court almost like a large household. The air felt calmer there, the way coastal towns in America feel at dawn. Gulls calling softly, water tapping against wooden docks, everything touched with a patient stillness. This was where Thetis hid her son among the king's daughters, not as a warrior, not even as a man, but disguised in women's clothing, his golden hair tied up, his presence softened, his strength tucked away like a secret. Achilles hated it at first, not out of vanity or pride, but because disguising himself felt wrong, like stepping out of his own skin. Yet as the days passed, life on Skyros took on an unexpected warmth. The palace was filled with music in the afternoons, laughter drifting through open windows, and long walks through gardens vibrant with summer color. Achilles moved among the women with an easy grace, learning their routines, their jokes, their rhythm. And for a time, a brief, tender time, he felt something he hadn't since childhood. Peace. Simple, steady peace. But peace never lasts long when fate has other plans. Because somewhere across the sea, Odysseus had begun searching. And if there's one thing every old American storyteller will tell you, it's this. When a man like Odysseus is looking for something, he always finds it. The first sign came on a breezy afternoon when a ship anchored quietly in the harbor. No banners, no drums, just the kind of deliberate silence that tells you someone didn't want to be noticed. Achilles didn't know it yet, but the world he'd built on Skyros, soft, slow, sheltered, was about to tremble. The same way the ground shivers right before a distant train rolls through. Because once Odysseus set foot on that island, there would be no hiding left. No disguises strong enough. No peace deep enough
to outrun destiny.
And the life Achilles had lived so gently was about to change forever. The island of Scyros was quiet that morning, like it was holding its breath. Achilles, disguised as one of Lycomedes's daughters, moved with effortless grace through the palace halls. To anyone else, he was just a young woman, weaving and singing, blending perfectly into the rhythm of the household. But Odysseus had other plans. The crafty king didn't need force, he had strategy. He set up a simple test, a room filled with weapons and a harp. First, he placed a lyre in the center and waited. The daughters gathered, but Achilles' eyes barely lingered on it. His fingers itched for something heavier, sharper. Then Odysseus brought out the spears, the swords, the shields. And as if a storm had been unleashed in a teacup, Achilles' instincts took over. His hands went straight for the weapons, his movements fluid and precise, as if he'd been born swinging a spear. Every guard, every maid, even the girls pretending to be his peers, froze. The transformation was instant. The gentle girl they'd seen for months disappeared, replaced by a force of nature, a warrior whose every motion demanded attention. Odysseus nodded quietly. Mission accomplished. The disguise was gone. Achilles' secret was out. But with revelation came conflict. A part of him had tasted something sweet on Scyros, a life of peace, of quiet. No battles, no prophecy hanging over his head like a storm cloud. He felt the pull of that calm, the temptation of normalcy, and for a heartbeat, he almost considered it. Almost. Because the blood in his veins didn't allow hesitation. The prophecy that had shaped his life since birth, fame or obscurity, glory or quiet, whispered its demand. Duty called louder than desire. With a deep, steadying breath, Achilles accepted it. He would go. He would fight. He would risk everything. And with that quiet, unshakable resolve, he followed Odysseus down to the waiting ships. The horizon ahead was uncertain, the future dangerous, and the battles ahead legendary. But Achilles had made his choice. The girl was gone. The warrior was ready. And the world would never forget his name. The Greek fleet lay still in the harbor of Aulis. Ships, black as midnight, lined up like silent sentinels, their sails slack in the gentle wind. The air was thick with expectation, every sailor and soldier feeling the pulse of something inevitable. Even the waves seemed to hesitate, brushing the hulls softly as if reluctant to begin the journey. In the quiet, stories drifted through the camp like whispers on a breeze. Tales of Iphigenia, daughter of Agamemnon, reached ears in hushed tones. Her fate, both tragic and necessary, hung in the minds of all who listened. Parents whispered warnings to their children, while the young warriors tried to mask the unease that tugged at their hearts. The story was bittersweet, a reminder that glory and sorrow often traveled hand in hand. Achilles watched from the deck of his ship, the moonlight reflecting off the calm waters, painting silver trails across the Aegean. He could feel the weight of destiny pressing gently against his chest.
Tomorrow the winds would shift. Tomorrow the sea would part. Tomorrow history would move, and there would be no turning back. For now, though, the world held its breath. The air smelled of salt and pine, of wood and bronze. The soldiers cleaned their weapons in silence, and somewhere a soft tune floated across the water, barely more than a murmur, soothing the tension that wrapped around the fleet like a shroud. And then, just as quietly as it had gathered, the moment arrived. The first ships edged forward, cutting through the glassy sea under the soft glow of the moon. Water parted beneath their keels, leaving trails that glimmered like silver threads in the night. One by one, the fleet followed, a river of men and metal, gliding toward fate, toward Troy, toward the storm that awaited. In that hush, Achilles felt it, the fragile peace before the thunder, the calm that marked the border between what had been and what must come. He took a steadying breath, gripping his spear, and allowed himself a quiet nod. The journey had begun. The Greek fleet drifted closer to Troy, the first hints of the city rising on the horizon like a dream. Towering walls of sun-baked stone caught the early morning light, and the city seemed almost alive, humming softly as if aware of the approaching visitors. The air smelled of salt and distant fires, and the soft lap of waves against the hulls was the only sound breaking the delicate hush. Achilles leaned against the rail of his ship, watching the city grow taller with every passing moment. There was a quiet awe in the way the walls stood, steadfast and unyielding, yet beautiful in their ancient imperfection. The heart of Troy seemed to pulse beneath the stone, a rhythm that beckoned him, whispering promises of fate, challenge, and the unknown. Amid the bustle of preparations, his attention was caught by a young woman, Briezes, standing near the dock. Her presence was quiet but magnetic, her eyes carrying the calm resilience of someone who had seen both beauty and suffering. When their gazes met, the world seemed to shrink. The noise of the harbor faded to a soft hum. Words were not necessary. A warmth passed between them, gentle and fleeting, a small light in the shadow of the war that loomed ahead.
Achilles allowed himself a breath, a brief pause to feel the weight of what was to come. The city waited, the air thick with stories yet to unfold. For this moment, however, there was connection, simple and human, a quiet reassurance that even amid the rising tide of war, hearts could still recognize one another. As the ships settled in the harbor, the walls of Troy reflecting the pale sun like polished bronze, Achilles felt a strange calm. The storm of battle had not yet begun, but in that soft, suspended hour, he understood something essential. Even heroes need moments of stillness, moments to feel, to breathe, to simply exist before the world demands legend. The campfires along the Greek lines flickered against the cool night, casting long, wavering shadows on the sand. The air smelled of smoke and salt, of sweat and iron, carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken fears. Within the midst of preparation, a quieter storm brewed, a storm not of weapons, but of pride and hearts bruised by misunderstanding. Achilles sat alone at the edge of the camp, the rhythmic sound of waves against the hulls below, a fragile lullaby to his restless mind. Agamemnon, king and commander, had spoken harshly, stripping him of his honor. and the words cut deeper than any blade. There was a sharp ache in being seen only for the fury in his fists, never for the weight he carried inside. He clenched his jaw and stared at the dark horizon, wishing the sea could swallow him whole and take with it the anger that burned quietly in his chest. The murmurs of the other Greek warriors floated across the sand, voices calling his name, pleading, demanding, trying to draw him back into the fold. But he did not move. The air between them was heavy with disappointment, frustration, and the impossible gap of understanding that stretched wider than any battlefield could. Even those who had once admired him now looked on with confusion, unsure whether to respect his silence or fear it. As the night deepened, the stars blinked coldly above, indifferent to the quarrels of mortals and demigods alike. Achilles wrapped his cloak tighter around his shoulders, leaning back against a weathered post. There was comfort in solitude, a strange clarity in stepping away from the chaos of others' expectations. Yet beneath that stillness lingered a quiet pain, the ache of being misunderstood, of seeing honor twisted and corrupted by pride and human flaws. The Greek commanders called for him again, their voices louder now, sharper with urgency, but the echoes fell on ears unwilling to respond. Achilles remained still, the sea's lullaby wrapping him in a fragile cocoon, the shadows of Troy stretching long and restless across the sand. Somewhere deep inside he knew the war was only beginning, and that the choices he made tonight would ripple far beyond the flickering firelight. The camp lay hushed under the weight of the moon, only the distant waves whispering against the shore. Achilles' silence had stretched through the evening, a quiet wall between him and the world. But in the shadow of his brooding, one figure moved gently, careful not to disturb the tense stillness. Patroclus, loyal and tender-hearted, approached with the softest of steps, carrying a warmth that seemed to belong to no one but him. He found Achilles staring out toward the looming walls of Troy, the faint light of the fires reflecting in the young hero's eyes, a storm of anger and sorrow intertwined. "You don't have to bear it alone," Patroclus murmured, sitting nearby. There was no argument, no grand speech, only the quiet presence of someone who understood the burden of being torn between duty and heart. Hours passed with the two of them side by side, the night bending around their conversation. Patroclus spoke of loyalty, of courage, of the threads of friendship that tied warriors together, threads stronger than pride and anger. He reminded Achilles that even the greatest of hearts sometimes needed another to carry the weight. And in those words the tension softened, a fragile bridge of trust forming between them. But the calm was fleeting. The cries from the battlefield grew louder, the Greeks calling for help in voices sharpened with desperation. Achilles' chest tightened, knowing the danger yet refusing to move. And then, with a quiet resolve, Patroclus arose. His armor, borrowed from the absent hero, gleamed faintly under the silver moonlight. Each piece was heavy, each strap a reminder of the man whose fury it concealed. Yet he donned it without hesitation, for love and loyalty often demanded the courage to step into peril. With the night holding its breath, Patroclus mounted his steed, the soft stir of hooves on sand the only sound before he vanished toward the shadows of war. Achilles remained, a silent witness to the selfless act, the ache of helplessness tightening in his chest. He had sent a piece of his own heart into the night, and the quiet air seemed to shiver with the weight of what was to come. The night returned, heavy with a stillness that felt almost unnatural. The campfires flickered weakly, as if mourning the absence of laughter and movement. Achilles had waited, watched, and hoped, yet the shadows seemed to stretch longer with each passing moment. The calls for Patroclus never came again.
When the truth reached him, it was not in the clash of swords or the cries of men, but in the quiet, unbearable weight of emptiness. Patroclus would not return. The news sank in slowly, as if the world itself held its breath, allowing the grief to seep into every corner of Achilles' heart. He sat alone, the armor of the borrowed hero laid aside, his own strength suddenly feeling fragile and hollow. In the silence, memories came unbidden, Patroclus's gentle words, the subtle smiles shared in fleeting moments, the steady presence that had anchored Achilles through nights like this. And now all that warmth felt painfully distant, like sunlight swallowed by a gathering storm. The world outside seemed too loud and too bright, yet the inner realm of his soul had narrowed to a single aching point, the absence of the one who had carried his courage when he could not. He did not move, did not speak. He simply sat, feeling the quiet ache of loss settle into his bones. The night seemed endless, and the air, for the first time, unbearably still.
In that quiet, Achilles understood the weight of love, loyalty, and the cost of pride. And he knew deep down that the path forward could not ignore what had been lost. Yet in this moment there was only grief, raw and unspoken, leaving the young hero stripped of everything but his sorrow. The days after Patroclus's death stretched long and quiet, as if the world itself had been hushed in mourning. The Greek camp carried on with its routines, yet Achilles lingered in a space outside of time. He moved among the soldiers, but his presence was a shadow. His laughter did not rise, and his eyes, usually bright with a restless fire, were dimmed by grief. Every sound, the clanging of bronze, the shouts of commanders, even the gentle rolling of the waves seemed distant, as if the world had become a half-remembered dream. It was not anger that finally stirred him, not the desire for vengeance that some might expect, but a deep, sorrowful purpose that refused to be ignored. Patroclus's life had been taken, yet his courage and care had left an echo too powerful to ignore. Achilles realized that the path forward could no longer be chosen lightly. His sorrow had shaped him into something more than a warrior, a young man who understood the weight of loss, who knew that every action now carried the memory of a friend he could never see again. In the molten heart of Hephaestus's forge, a different kind of fire waited. The god's workshop glowed with a brilliance that seemed to come from the stars themselves, the flames casting long, flickering shadows over the walls and tools. Sparks leapt into the air, gliding like tiny comets, each one a reflection of the care and skill poured into the task at hand. Here, the god worked silently, hammering and shaping, bending bronze and steel into armor that seemed alive with its own quiet energy. Every strike of the hammer sang with remembrance, every polished plate gleamed with the weight of memory, and every joint and curve was designed to honor both protection and legacy. When Hephaestus finally presented the armor to Achilles, it was more than a shield and a set of plates. It was a vessel of purpose. The breastplate gleamed like polished sunlight, the greaves and gauntlets fitting perfectly, as if the metal had been waiting for him, shaped by grief and care. Each piece carried the weight of what had been lost, but also the promise of what could still be done. As Achilles donned the armor, he felt its weight not as a burden, but as a reminder, a constant, steady echo of Patroclus's courage, of the life that had been taken too soon. He did not march forward with a roar, nor did he wield his spear with blind rage. He moved with measured steps, the solemnity of his purpose guiding each one. The camp watched in awe and quiet, sensing the change. This was not the same boy who had trained under Chiron, nor the reckless youth who had once hidden on the island of Scyros. This Achilles carried the gravity of loss, the discipline of training, and the clear-eyed understanding that what awaited him beyond the walls of Troy was not merely battle, it was destiny. From the high walls of Troy, Hector watched the figure approaching. His gaze followed the returning warrior with a mix of respect, caution, and unease. The young man who now bore the weight of grief and honor in equal measure moved with a calm that spoke louder than the loudest cries of war. He was not a force of anger, but a force of inevitability, a presence shaped by sorrow and strengthened by remembrance. Achilles approached the battlefield as though moving through a dream. Every step carried memory, love, and purpose. There was no rush, no careless haste. The world had changed, and he had changed with it. The weight of friendship lost, the quiet lessons of sorrow, and the responsibility he now bore, all of it moved with him, invisible but undeniable. He was ready, not for the glory of war alone, but for the duty that his heart and his past demanded. And as he neared the field, the first shimmer of sunlight glinted across the bronze of his new armor, casting reflections that seemed to echo the life he had loved and the friend he could never forget. Hector, standing tall behind the walls, felt it too. A warrior reborn, not through fury, but through the quiet strength of purpose, ready to meet whatever awaited beyond the gates of Troy. The battlefield had quieted, though only slightly. The shouts and cries that had filled the day were fading, replaced by the low hum of the evening wind and the soft rustle of armor settling in the cool dusk. Achilles moved through the remnants of the fight with a calm he had not felt in months. He did not walk as a boy filled with anger, nor as a warrior drunk on vengeance. He moved with a careful, deliberate purpose, each step tracing the memory of Patroclus, each breath carrying the weight of all that had been lost and all that could still be honored. Hector stood atop the walls of Troy, resolute and aware. He had faced the storm of Achilles' return with the courage of a man who knew his place in the story of the world. When the two met, there was no clashing of swords in the thunderous way that songs would tell it later. There was only the solemn recognition of duty, of lives entwined by honor, pride, and the unyielding pull of fate. Every glance, every movement spoke more than words could. Achilles with his sorrowful purpose, Hector with his steadfast dignity. The duel was swift but measured, the inevitable carefully met rather than fought in fury. When Hector fell, it was not chaos that followed, but a profound hush that seemed to descend over the land itself. The young prince's final moments were quiet, marked by a deep understanding of honor and inevitability. Achilles knelt, not in triumph, but in acknowledgement of the courage that had stood before him. There was no celebration, only the weight of life and loss settling heavily in the cool night air. As the stars began to emerge, scattered like silver dust across the darkening sky, Achilles lifted Hector's body with reverence. The Greek camp moved with him, giving space, watching silently. Each step back towards the city was filled with the gravity of understanding. Even victory could not erase the shadow of sorrow. Every soldier, every companion felt the delicate balance of triumph and grief, the echo of what it meant to face the cost of war in its most intimate form. Arriving at the gates of Troy, Achilles met Priam,
the king who had lost a son he loved dearly. His hands shook, but his gaze was steady, holding a quiet strength that could not be dismissed. Achilles knelt, presenting Hector's body as one might offer a fragile flame. Words were few, but their weight was immense, a language of mutual understanding and shared humanity. Priam's hands rested gently on the lifeless prince, a gesture that spoke of love, grief, and the fragile hope that even in the shadow of loss, dignity could endure.
The night deepened, and the stars leaned closer, as if to witness the rare softness of a world otherwise consumed by the heat of battle. Achilles lingered a moment longer, the silence pressing against him in a way both comforting and unsettling. He had returned Hector's body. He had honored the courage of a worthy foe, yet the act left him with a new awareness. The threads of fate, which had seemed distant and abstract, now felt close and insistent. He could sense the path that lay before him, each step inevitable, each choice heavy with consequence. Sitting alone under the vast canopy of stars, Achilles let the quiet wash over him. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to feel the fragility of life and the certainty of what was to come. The grief for Patroclus, the sorrow for Hector, and the respect for the bonds that linked all living hearts, these feelings converged, forming a gentle, unrelenting clarity. Achilles understood that the end of one story was simply the turning of a page, that his own fate was approaching, and that even heroes, as mighty as they might be, could not escape the quiet pull of destiny. The night wrapped around him like a soft cloak, stars reflecting in his thoughtful eyes. And in that moment, under the vastness of the heavens, Achilles felt a closeness to his own mortality that he had never truly known before. A recognition of the final chapters waiting to be written, and the silent strength it took to meet them with honor. The camp had quieted, and the glow of torches flickered against the still night. Achilles walked among the tents, his footsteps blending with the distant sounds of waves on the shore. He no longer moved with the intense urgency of a man seeking revenge or glory. Each step now carried the weight of memories, of lives touched, and of lessons learned through loss and love. The battles of the past lingered in the shadows, yet in the hush of evening they felt distant, softened by the stars overhead. Achilles thought of Patroclus, Hector, and every friend and foe who had shaped him. Their faces came to mind not as reminders of pain, but as echoes of connection, courage, and beauty amid conflict. He recognized that heroism was measured not just by strength or swordplay. It was found in quiet choices, in decisions made with care, and in honor maintained even when the world threatened to take it away. In those days before his end, Achilles moved with a subtle grace. He was aware of life's fragility, but felt no fear of death. He lingered in the mornings, watching the sunlight ripple over the waves, letting the warmth fall on his face, as if the world was offering him a gentle blessing. In the evenings, he sat by flickering fires, listening to voices share stories, laughter mingling with sighs. These small, quiet moments held greater power than any victory on the battlefield. They reminded him that even in the face of fate, there was space for gentleness, reflection, and the soft hum of life moving on. When the time came, it was neither cruel nor violent. Achilles' passing was like the slow closing of a door, a final breath after years of struggle, sorrow, and fleeting joy.
His body rested beneath a twilight sky, the stars leaning in as if to cradle him in their quiet light. There was no chaos, only the stillness of a life that had burned bright, touched many hearts, and left a legacy that could not fade. In that quiet, it felt as if Achilles had become part of the gentle rhythm of the world, his memory flowing into the song of wind, water, and night. Stories began to rise around him, carried by travelers and soldiers alike. These were not tales of rage or relentless fury. Instead, they spoke of courage mixed with sorrow, of a man who loved deeply, fought for a purpose, and ultimately understood life's delicate balance between life and death. Children would later hear his name as they fell asleep, imagining a hero who walked among the stars, whose light shone not with violence, but with quiet strength and lasting grace. Now, as you listen, let the world slow around you. Imagine Achilles resting beneath the night sky, the soft hum of the ocean and the twinkling constellations above. Let the weight of his story settle in your heart, reminding you that even the greatest heroes carry tenderness, and that profound struggles leave behind threads of beauty and peace. Take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Allow the quiet of the stars and the gentle echo of Achilles' journey to guide you into rest. The battles, losses, and victories all weave into a story that now becomes still. In that stillness, the legend remains, glowing softly, unbroken, and timeless. Drift now, wrapped in the calm of the night, carrying the echoes of a hero whose memory will never fade. A story that continues quietly and beautifully wherever it is remembered. As the last warmth of Achilles' story settled into the quiet of the world, the echoes of his life did not fade. They lingered like a soft sigh across the hills and seas. The battles had ended. The grief had passed into memory, yet in every corner touched by his journey, something remained. A gentle reminder of courage, of love, and of the quiet strength that shaped a world. Tonight, we follow those whispers further, not into the clash of swords or the roar of gods, but into the spaces between, the places where stories breathe softly, where heroes live on in memory, and where even in stillness, their presence can be felt. This is where our journey continues, through the quiet echoes of a hero. Even as Achilles' story quietly ended, his presence remained like a soft pulse beneath the earth and sky. The battlefields were now empty. The sound of armor faded into distant memory, and the winds gently whispered through the olive trees, carrying the faint echo of a life that once burned so brightly. In the villages and along the coasts where sailors shared tales of the war, parents talked about a young warrior who had been more than human, whose choices shaped the fate of cities and kingdoms. But these stories weren't just about victory or pain. They were about the impact he left in the hearts of those who remembered him. It started in small ways. A child playing by the shore would copy the movements of a spear, imagining he was as strong and brave as the man who had lived before him. An old woman, gathering herbs in a quiet garden, would hum the gentle tune of a song that had once been sung around campfires near Troy, a melody meant to honor the courage of those who fought for something bigger than themselves. Even the wind over the Aegean seemed to carry a memory of Achilles' steps, as if the world itself remembered the weight of his presence. These echoes were not loud. There were no wars to fight or grand victories to share. Instead, they were quiet and tender, touching hearts in ways that a battle never could. A soldier who had fought alongside Achilles would carry with him not just the memory of battle, but also of the loyalty and sacrifice he had witnessed. He would tell his children not to remember him as an enemy to Troy, but as a man who fought fiercely for what he believed in.
Served with Achilles long ago might pause in the marketplace, recalling the simple moments they spent in tents, not talking about glory, but about friendship, laughter at night, and dreams whispered before sleep. In those moments of reflection, the memory of Achilles inspired courage, not to fight, but to live with honor, to face life's challenges with quiet determination, and to recognize that even small acts could carry the weight of greatness. In the villages and halls where his name was mentioned, people began to tell the story in new ways. They didn't always mention the spear or the shield. Instead, they talked about the choices he made, the loyalty he showed, and the love he quietly carried through the chaos of war. Children, wide-eyed by the fire, learned not just about bravery, but also about the heart that drove it. Lovers whispered his name when promising faithfulness. Scholars and poets found inspiration in the rhythm of his life, the rise and fall, the brief moments of joy between long shadows of sorrow. Yet, despite all the remembrance, Achilles was not confined to history. He became something softer, almost like a presence you could sense rather than touch. Sometimes, in the stillness of dawn, when the world seemed to pause in delicate waiting, the wind over the hills carried a sense of him. It felt like strength and vulnerability intertwined, a life lived fully and fiercely, and a soul that had never truly left. For those who listened, the echoes offered comfort, almost like a lullaby, reminding them that greatness is not only about deeds of war, but also about the quiet courage that continues to spread long after the story ends. As night draped its curtain over the sky, the stars twinkled with a softer light, each one reflecting a piece of his legacy. The world held its breath in respectful stillness, and in that moment, the echo of Achilles became a gentle companion to anyone willing to pause and feel it. And as you settle deeper into your own quiet space, you might sense it too. The lingering warmth of a hero's journey, the calm whisper of a life remembered, guiding you gently into sleep, where the echoes of courage and heart can live on, quietly, forever. After Achilles fell into history, the world moved on, but it always carried the faint hint of his presence. The cities that had shaken under the weight of war began to rebuild. Fields once trampled by armies slowly returned to green, whispering life in rhythms that had paused for so long. People walked along the streets, unaware that their steps covered stories of courage and loss, stories held quietly in the hearts of survivors. Everywhere they looked, echoes of Achilles lingered, not in the chaos of battle, but in the soft glimmer of memory. Fishermen casting nets in the early morning sunlight would pause, sensing something familiar in the rhythm of the waves. It was a subtle reminder that a life of extraordinary bravery had once moved among them. Travelers on dusty roads might catch themselves smiling at a moment of fleeting courage, recalling tales whispered by grandmothers and wandering storytellers. They realized the impact of a hero was never measured solely by the battles he fought. It was in the lives he touched, in the lessons his choices left behind, in the quiet encouragement that hung over time. Even those who had never seen him, who had only heard bits of his story, could feel it in small ways. A teacher telling children about honor and responsibility might sense Achilles' journey in the pauses between lessons. A young musician learning to play by a fire might find a melody that carried his courage, not the roar of war, but the subtle heartbeat of loyalty and purpose.
Across the lands, people began to carry pieces of him in their lives, weaving the essence of his spirit into the fabric of ordinary days without even realizing it. Yet, the world also felt the weight of what Achilles had left behind. Cities and homes bore the faint scars of conflict, and the memories of those lost were never quite erased. Even in this quiet shadow, there was a comforting presence, something that reminded people that life, like a river, flows on, carrying the echoes of those who came before. Farmers planting seeds in freshly tilled soil, children laughing in sunlit courtyards, families gathering for evening meals. All these moments were touched by the same spirit that had once driven a young hero into the heart of destiny. The ordinary world, it seemed, could hold the extraordinary. In the soft glow of twilight, when the sun slipped behind distant hills and the air smelled of olive trees and sea salt, the memory of Achilles felt almost alive. It was not a memory that shouted or demanded, but one that was gentle, patient, and lasting. He had left behind not just the story of a hero, but a quiet lesson that courage is not always loud, that bravery often lives in the choice to do what is right even when no one is watching, and that love, loyalty, and honor are gifts that ripple far beyond the moments we see. As night fell and stars began to sprinkle the sky with a gentle light, the world exhaled softly, carrying the essence of Achilles into every shadow, every quiet corner, and every whispered thought. Those who paused and listened could feel it, the lingering presence of a hero who shaped the world not through immortality, but through the echoes of his heart, living on quietly in every life touched by his story. And as you settle deeper into your own quiet space, you might feel it too, the soft reminder that the world, though it moves forward, always holds the memory of those who dared to live fully. Even in stillness, a hero's legacy can guide and comfort, softly and endlessly into sleep. Even long after the battles were over and the city walls of Troy had quieted, Achilles' story kept moving. It spread not through armies or ships, but through the whispers of those who remembered him, or those who remembered others who did. In small coastal villages, parents softly spoke his name while tucking children into bed, weaving stories of bravery and honor into their dreams. The tale was never hurried. It flowed slowly like water over stones, settling into the hearts of listeners in a way that felt both old and comforting. Travelers and merchants shared bits of his story across lands, from busy marketplaces to quiet mountain paths. A baker, working dough in the morning light, might recount the moment Achilles first met Patroclus, focusing on their loyalty and friendship rather than the war. A shepherd tending his flock at sunset might speak of Achilles' quiet moments of doubt and reflection, reminding his children that even the greatest heroes are human and that bravery often comes with fear. In this way, the essence of his life flowed through generations, timeless and ever-changing, yet always true to the heart of the man who had fought so fiercely. The whispers weren't just in words. They lived in songs and melodies, simple rhythms sung around a fire or hummed softly in the morning sun. They showed up in dances, celebrating honor,
Courage and loyalty passed down through generations. Even when the details of the story changed, the emotions stayed. The ache of love, the weight of responsibility, the quiet strength found in protecting those we love. Through these small human expressions, Achilles became less of a distant legend and more a companion in everyday life, a gentle presence guiding those who listened closely. Even the land seemed to hold signs of him, Olive trees swayed as if remembering the winds over Aulis and Troy. Rivers reflected memories that shimmered with the image of a young man in armor, moving with purpose through the tides of fate. The world, in its quiet way, remembered the hero, even when people forgot the exact shape of his story. And those who paid attention, who paused in the evening's soft light or the dawn's quiet, could sense the thread of life, the way stories ripple outward, linking the past to the present in ways that are unseen but clear. Across generations, Achilles became more than a warrior. He became a symbol of choices and consequences, of love and loss, of the quiet moments that shape a life. Parents, teachers, friends, and strangers shared the whispers, shaping them with their own experiences each time. Children imagined themselves walking alongside him, feeling the weight of his armor not as a burden, but as a reminder of the courage we all carry. Elders, recalling their own struggles, nodded quietly at the lessons hidden within the story, recognizing that life, like Achilles' journey, is often about what we carry inside, not just what the world sees. As night settled over towns and villages, and stars appeared one by one in the dark sky, the whispers continued. They flowed through homes and fields, carried in the soft hum of a lullaby, in the quiet chatter of friends, in the thoughtful pause of someone gazing at the horizon. In every whisper, there was a spark of remembrance, a gentle echo of a hero who had fought fiercely, loved deeply, and left behind more than battles or fame. He left lessons and memories woven into the soft fabric of human connection, touching hearts one by one across time. And as you sink deeper into your own quiet world, you might feel the whispers too, soft, guiding, comforting, reminding you that stories, like lives, go on beyond what we see, pass gently from one heart to the next, shaping the world quietly, endlessly, into the night. In the stillness after great stories, there is a quiet space where lessons wait to be discovered. They aren't shouted out or carved into stone. Instead, they are whispered softly in everyday life. Achilles' story, remembered by many, held these subtler lessons. They emerge only when you pause and listen. After the wars, the battles, and the glory faded, the echo of his choices remained in this silence. They taught lessons that were gentle but lasting. One of the first lessons was the power of understanding yourself. Achilles, fierce in battle but tender in heart, showed that courage is not the absence of fear, it is the choice to act despite it. In the quiet moments, long after the shields clashed and the dust of Troy settled, people realized that bravery does not always involve swords and armor. Sometimes it lies in the courage to love fully, to grieve openly, and to face loss without turning away. There is strength in allowing oneself to feel, and Achilles' life conveyed this truth to every generation that heard his story. Another lesson focused on the fragility and importance of relationships. The bond between Achilles and Patroclus was tender and strong, reminding listeners that our connections shape who we are more than any title or award could. People learned that love and friendship are not weaknesses, they are lifelines, the threads that hold us together when the world feels vast and relentless. In the silence, parents noticed how children sought comfort, friends reflected on the small gestures that mattered,
and strangers recognized the weight of loyalty. All of this mirrored the lessons found in Achilles' companionship, highlighting the unseen power of human connection. Yet there were also warnings in his story, subtle like shadows from a candle. Achilles' pride, his moments of anger and stubbornness, reminded listeners that choices carry consequences often beyond what we can see. The silence after his battles allowed for reflection on how we act and react, and how those actions ripple outward. Even the smallest choices, like a quiet word or a hesitant step, can change the course of our lives and those around us. Achilles' journey prompted reflection, not judgment, but an understanding that life is full of significant decisions that must be faced carefully. From this reflection came an appreciation for impermanence. No armor, glory, or song can stop time, yet memories and lessons endure. In quiet rooms or under starlit skies, people saw that life's fleeting nature does not lessen its value. Instead, it enhances it, urging us to savor moments of joy, tenderness, and reverence for the fleeting beauty of life. Achilles' story, in its triumphs and losses, served as a gentle guide, promoting mindfulness, presence, and reverence for the fleeting beauty of life. And finally, the silence offered a lesson about legacy, not the kind built from monuments or fame, but the subtle influence from the stories we leave in others' hearts. The soft echoes of Achilles' life reminded everyone that our actions, love, and choices are seeds that travel farther than we might ever see. The stories we live become lessons for those who follow, sometimes quietly and sometimes in ways that only appear long after we are gone. And as night deepened and the world held its breath, these lessons settled like a gentle blanket. They were not loud or insistent, but lasting, reaching across time to anyone willing to pause and listen. In that quiet, there was a profound truth. Sometimes the most important wisdom is found not in the noise of history, but in the subtle, quiet moments in between. These silences carry the weight of understanding, reflection, and the heart. After Achilles' story settled into memory, a simple truth remained. Heroism is not just about armor, battles, or legends sung in large halls. True heroism exists in each person, in the small, often overlooked choices made daily. As listeners shared Achilles' tale beyond Troy, they began to see reflections of him not only in legendary warriors, but in themselves, in moments when courage quietly appeared in everyday life. The first sign of heroism appeared in the willingness to act with integrity. Achilles, in moments of anger and sadness, showed that standing by one's principles, even when it leads to pain or misunderstanding, is a form of bravery. The Greeks who once followed him and the generations who listened later saw this reflected in the lives of those who faced moral dilemmas quietly yet firmly. Neighbors helping neighbors, teachers guiding students, and friends speaking difficult but true things.
Necessary truths. These everyday acts, though often unnoticed in grand histories, were the threads of heroism woven into the world. The same courage Achilles showed in his unique way. Next came compassion, subtle yet powerful. Achilles' care for Patroclus and his choice to return Hector's body showed that strength is not separate from empathy. It is deeply connected to it. The audience carried this lesson forward, realizing that heroism often shows itself in acts of kindness, comforting the grieving, forgiving the stubborn, protecting the vulnerable. Every time someone offered kindness without expecting anything in return, the quiet spirit of Achilles lived on. They understood that heroism lies not only in grand gestures, but also in the patience and care we give to others. There was also resilience, the kind of quiet strength that doesn't seek applause. Achilles faced immense loss, yet persisted, not just for glory, but because he recognized his role in the unfolding story. Listeners reflected on this, realizing that resilience is necessary to navigate their own lives, to face challenges without losing hope. The heroes within themselves were those who rose each day despite fear or doubt, who continued to love, work, learn, and protect. Like Achilles, heroism is often less about winning and more about persistence. Another lesson was self-awareness. Achilles' moments of reflection, the quiet hours following battles and grief, showed that understanding oneself is essential for living a memorable life. When we take time to recognize our strengths and weaknesses, to understand our impulses and fears, we gain the ability to shape our paths consciously, rather than drift aimlessly. The heroes within each listener, they realized, are formed through this awareness, nurtured by thoughtfulness, and strengthened by humility. Finally, there was the concept of legacy. Not the kind carved in stone or sung by poets, but a legacy of influence. Every act of courage, compassion, and understanding creates ripples, affecting lives in ways we might never fully see. Achilles' story reminded listeners that the greatest heroes are those whose actions inspire others to rise, care, and act with integrity long after the battle's end. In quiet moments, people came to understand that living with purpose, even in simple ways, creates a story worth sharing. As night fell and the world grew quiet, the lesson became clear. Every listener carries their own hero, quiet but real, within their heart. It is found in acts of kindness, in the courage to speak the truth, in the resilience to face life's challenges, and in the understanding that even small gestures have a lasting impact. The story of Achilles may belong to history, but the heroes we carry inside are ours to embody every day in ways both gentle and profound. As the echoes of battles fade and the dust settles over ancient plains, we leave behind the footsteps of a hero whose life was brief yet lasting. Achilles' story is not just about war and glory, but also about love, loss, courage, and the quiet moments that shaped him as much as the clash of spears. He walked among gods and men, guided by fate and the hearts of those who believed in him. From the tender care of Thetis to the steadfast loyalty of Patroclus, every choice that burdened his spirit echoed through time, leaving a mark on the world. It reminds us that even in mortality, we can shine with a light that lingers well beyond our years. Tonight, as you close your eyes and let the world soften around you, picture the calm of the Aegean waters, the warmth of the sun on the plains of Troy, and the stillness that comes after even the greatest storms. Let the courage and the quiet wisdom of Achilles guide your dreams, carrying you through stories that are both ancient and endless.
Now, as the stars settle into the night sky and the world breathes gently, rest. Let your mind drift, surrounded by the quiet of remembered heroism and the gentle rhythm of a life that, though over, continues to shine in legend. Sleep now, knowing stories like this quietly live in the heart, and that tomorrow, the world is ready to greet you anew.